Greetings from Los Angeles, greetings from Los Angeles County, greetings from the West Coast, greetings from not Tokyo, but on the other side of the world or close to it. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with our journeys, our discussions, our discoveries, and our observations with respect to the recent releases made by the Criterion Collection during this year of 2023. And that brings us to a release of a title which actually already currently exists in the Criterion Collection physical media catalog. However, on this occasion, the Criterion Collection has re-released this film using or utilizing the 4K UHD plus Blu-ray format. And I'm speaking of a work that has been released by Criterion, designated at spine number 37. And this is a work which is described as being from the year 1981. And the name of the filmmaker is Terry Gilliam. And the name of the work is Time Bandits. Described as being from the year 1981, and it is written by Michael Palin and Terry Gilliam. It is produced and directed by Terry Gilliam, the one, the only Terry Gilliam. And we also have among its really great cast people like David Warnock and Sean Connery and Ian Holm and Catherine Hellman and David Rappaport and Kenny Baker and John Cleese and Shelley Duvall and Michael Palin and Peter Vaughn, David Warner, and others. So many, Jack Purvis, so many people, Malcolm Dixon, so many people in this wonderful cast, including which are, for example, these fine actors and others. And I'm speaking, of course, of this work, which is Time Bandits. Now, the film Time Bandits, as I mentioned before, already currently exists, or it currently existed in previous Criterion releases, including, for example, a DVD and then a Blu-ray from some years back. But now on this occasion, this year, 2023, the Criterion Collection is re-releasing this time employing the 4K UHD plus Blu-ray combo format. And I should point out that this is yet another example of a Terry Gilliam film, directed film, in the Criterion Collection, this time re-released to take advantage of the 4K UHD format. And so we've had a number of releases already, both new and previously existing or currently existing, of Terry Gilliam's directed works filmography. So here is yet another example of this. Again, Time Bandits returns or reemerges or reestablishes its fine position within the context of Criterion's physical media catalog. And my goodness, this is a lovely reminder of the brilliant and pleasant and fairy tale-like whimsy and fantasy and off-the-wall, imaginative, creative zaniness that is so charming, so funny, so adventurous, so filled with a lot of these scenarios, almost like sketches or sketch comedy, which maybe harkens back to a certain Monty Python aesthetic, which I think is oh so wonderful, oh so revered, and oh so telling, and so fruitful in terms of a brilliantly conceived story structure. And that story structure revolves around our young protagonist, who is this young boy, who is Kevin. And here we have him, through a certain set of circumstances, encountering a group of maybe self-described, say, warriors or thieves or a gang, who have absconded with or have taken a very special map. And this very special map is putting them in a lot of very precarious situations. First, it allows them to be able to, in essence, find specific spots along the way throughout the space-time continuum whereby they are able to get into adventures by traveling back and forth in time. Hence the title Time Bandits. Now, there are a certain number of things that occur with this, with Kevin along for the ride due to a certain set of circumstances, thus adding to the appeal of a type of childlike fantasy tale that is a rip-roaring adventure on the one hand and also a delightful fantasy on another, and also a type of fairy tale with heroes and villains. And we have those in great stock and then some, because we have the ever presiding threat of the pursuing supreme being, a type of glowing face that seems to be ever present and trying to capture or retake that which has been taken from such supreme being, the map in question, a very special map indeed. And then also we have the presence of a very, very malevolent looking antagonist, portraying evil personified, evil genius. And here we have an example of some of the great performances that we have awaiting us with this wonderful, wonderful film, that being, of course, David Warner, who is replete with this wonderful wardrobe and this wonderful alien-looking head that's almost out of something from H.R. Giger's imagination. But this adds to the menace and to the villainy of the piece. And so we have our heroes, this gang of thieves, bandits, who are essentially trying to take advantage of this very powerful tool which they have been able to obtain, this map. And Kevin, this young boy who is along the way in for the adventure of a lifetime, or indeed a series of lifetimes across time and space, because throughout this we get to see various little mini adventures, various scenarios, like very much like a sketch comedy routine, different episodes along the way, different time periods, different figures in history that are captured in a type of, say, down-to-earth, almost too down-to-earth way that reveals a lot about their humanity and a lot of the comedic absurdist nature that this film takes. It takes these very commonly known figures of history and twists and turns their portrayals to create a sense of comedy, a sense of laugh out loud humor, and also to twist the absurdity in a way that gives it a wonderful homemade, almost grungy feel, so that we can experience the special effects in all of their DIY glory. And again, I mean this 100% faithfully and 100% complimentary, because that's part of the fun of watching a Terry Gilliam film, is to see all the special effects bonanza scenarios occur with practical special effects, with wonderful makeup appliance, with the tricks of editing, with forced perspective, as well as applied post special effects along the way. And there's so many of that and then some, again, created and combined in a way that is super, super genius. Not necessarily evil genius, but super, super genius. That is the mind and work of Terry Gilliam and company, cast and crew here combined in full faith efforts to create this brilliant work, which is Time Bandits. So going back to the plot, again, this allows for fantasies of Kevin to essentially come to life, meeting these heroes or figures of history along the way, Agamemnon or Robin Hood or Napoleon, etc. But there's a twist on the tale, and so there's some kind of human element that comes in. Sometimes chance steps in to intervene, and that intervention leads to further entanglements and further complicated circumstances that Kevin and his friends need to essentially get out of. Or maybe there are shifting allegiances, shifting points of view that make people want to stay where they are, or maybe make them want to relitigate or reconsider their current situations, while at the same time all this wonderful fantasy stuff is happening before our very eyes, and we are leaping from place to place to place, from time to time to time, meeting new heroes along the way, and seeing perhaps peering behind the curtain to see that perhaps our heroes, as known throughout history, are perhaps not as heroic as one might think, or perhaps there is a different type of heroism at place, whether it be from the sort of general public view of grand physical prowess, or maybe it's in the intimate one-on-one, like a simple magic trick between a fatherly figure and a son figure, or something like that. So this is to say that this film takes certain perceptions of history and turns them on their head for many purposes, sometimes for laughs, sometimes to raise the stakes of the hero's journey as portrayed by Kevin and company, also for the sake of creating yet further delights for the senses in true Terry Gilliam fashion in the terms of the setups and the special effects galore, and to see how far the envelope can be pushed regarding the depiction of fantasy and imagination come to life in true Terry Gilliam style. So here we have yet another wonderful, wonderful example of a Terry Gilliam work re-released for the audiences here at the Criterion Collection. And what a film this is. I must say that while I wouldn't call myself the biggest expert when it comes to Terry Gilliam works, I enjoy Terry Gilliam's directed films immensely. And it's very hard for me to rank them personally, but if I had to, I would definitely have Time Bandits up there. This is up there as among my favorites of his directed works, because I love the way it has that biting edge to it. I mean, there is a streak of cruelty in this, which I think has a sense of adult humor, which I think is very Terry Gilliam and Monty Python and company. It's done very tastefully and very cleverly, but it's also it's there, so it doesn't create an overly saccharine experience. On the contrary, it makes for a well-blended and balanced experience, both in terms of the acerbic quality of humor that's applied, which I really appreciate. It adds a kind of biting edge to it, which in turn raises the stakes of the drama, because the stakes are even higher, and there might even be life and death stakes on display. And that's certainly true in many degrees and forms throughout the filmography of Terry Gilliam. Time Bandits is a great example of that. So I like that layer of acerbic wit. Also, I like the fantastic fantasy elements, which are rendered so well and so handmade quality-like, which I really appreciate and enjoy. There is a way in which Terry Gilliam's world in Time Bandits needs to be tactile. It needs to feel almost, it needs almost to call attention to the fact that it is, in many respects, artificial. And that's not a knock against the film. On the contrary, that adds to the type of surreal, absurdist, theatrical quality of a lot of the set pieces. You know, we see some of the pieces wobble. We see some of the props as standout at props. We see some of the costuming that call attention to the fact that they are costumes or they are masks. But this is the point of the Terry Gilliam aesthetic, as exemplified so beautifully in Time Bandits. You know, we have to feel the artifice, because it lends itself, I think, to a tactile quality, something that we can feel as audience members, we can reach out and touch. I don't know if that makes sense. And that ability for us to imagine as we're watching a Terry Gilliam film like Time Bandits, in an interesting, strange, and wonderful way, makes it all the more believable. I don't know if that makes any sense. In other words, it feels tactile, or we know in our minds that it is a tactile world. We can feel it or touch it or smell it or get a sense of it. And if that's the case, that makes it even more real in our imaginations as we watch the film. And that has a very special kind of timeless quality that in turn links to fairy tale traditions, that turn links to the traditions of storytelling. And if anything, Time Bandits is a tale about tales. It is a tale about historical settings and tales, reliving things right before our very eyes and meeting our historical heroes and seeing if they are really living up to their historical heroic status, or perhaps there's something beneath the surface that we have only yet to learn about, and we will learn about as we get to know these historical figures face to face. Along the way, we have much rip-roaring suspense action pieces, pieces that defy gravity, defy logic, That's part of the fun. Suddenly, things and specters and ghosts emerge that really cause a threat to our heroes and make us question whether they will succeed in our mission or not. Not to mention the fact that they're always under pursuit along the way. People are chasing them, supreme being, evil genius notwithstanding, as well as the own interplay and drama between and among our heroes, our band of heroes. Will they succeed or will they themselves break up as per the usual sets of, say, pressures and heroic, say, challenges that they must overcome? Will they be able to overcome them or not? That's part of the fun and part of the appeal and allure of watching a film like Time Bandits. A visual, well, not just visual, but a visual and oral and an overall treat for the senses that is a compelling fairy tale fantasy work that also has a biting edge to it that is very clever and witty with a lot of great memorable appearances in terms of the cast along the way. This is an overall magical film, one of my favorite works by Terry Gilliam, and here we have it once again re-released in the Criterion Collection in this year of 2023, and I'm speaking about this work, which is Time Bandits. The Criterion Collection has re-released this film, Time Bandits, again at spine number 37, this time on the occasion of this year, 2023, relying upon the 4K UHD plus Blu-ray format. And this is described as being new 4K restoration supervised by Terry Gilliam with uncompressed stereo soundtrack, and one 4K UHD disc of the film presented in Dolby Vision HDR, and one Blu-ray of the film with special features. So I have in the player at the moment the menu for the 4K UHD disc. And just very quickly, let me mention about the master as it appears on this corner of the fold-out poster, which is part of the proceedings here with this release, and we'll talk a little bit about this later in the video, but it's, I quote, about the master. Time Bandits is presented in its original aspect ratio of 1.85 to 1. Supervised by director Terry Gilliam, this new restoration was created in 4K resolution on an Aeroscan XT film scanner from the 35mm original camera negative at Silver Salt Restoration Limited in Slough, England. The original stereo soundtrack was remastered at 24-bit from the 35mm magnetic track. On the 4K Ultra HD disc, the feature is presented in Dolby Vision HDR, high dynamic range. On the Blu-ray, it is presented in high definition SDR, standard dynamic range. And so I was able to watch this on the 4K disc and also on the Blu-ray disc again. I watched it not on this TV actually, but on a larger TV that we have in a separate room downstairs, just to take advantage of the slightly larger screen that we have for that separate room TV, as well as the audio system there. But just for purposes of today and this display, I have this TV here, and I put the disc here just to give you a sense of the Blu-ray menu or the 4K UHD menu here. So this is a film that has, again, been released so many times on physical media, and I think outside of Criterion too, it's hard for me to keep track as to how many times this has been released. So I think it's been a fairly regularly available title, and I've seen it a number of times on various releases since many years back. I haven't had the opportunity to be able to visit this in the theater recently, so I can't really claim to have any direct knowledge as to how this 4K restoration or presentation would look compared to, say, a nice viewing of this in the theater. But I do remember seeing this when I was very young and continuing to watch it on a regular basis all throughout the years, because this is a film that I really enjoy watching. And so I have a sense of the overall beats of the film and watching it, and again, after watching it a number of times. But I don't have any technical expertise or command over technical expertise, but based on my own subjective experience with the film, I love how this looked and felt on the 4K UHD format. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's going to take me forever away from relying on the Blu-ray, because I always thought the Blu-ray, the Criterion Blu-ray, was really, really good, and I've always relied on that going forward. But the 4K UHD, I have, again, based on my own knowledge of the film, I don't see any blemishes, or I don't see any points that would make me or detract from my reliance on the 4K UHD presentation going forward. And this is a film too that has this idea of use of color and grandness, but also has the idea of retaining a sense of spectacle while at the same time reminding us of the artifice. And so in that way, there's this really interesting, at least in my mind, the kind of push and pull that occurs when I'm watching it, maybe on a kind of immediate, almost psychological, immediate reaction level, in the sense that I like to see some of the blemishes. I like to see some of the defects. I like to see, the strings. You know what I mean? I like to see the smoke, and I like to feel like it's theatrical. Not all the time, but somewhat. And I like to have that sense. And so, it's okay for me to see this film, blemishes and all, which means I don't have to see it ultra pristine, which is maybe a great thing, because I think the 4K UHD, it has a sense of maintaining a sense of the blemishes. It retains that quality of a type of roughness, while I think maybe augmenting a sense of the sharpness. And so what I therefore appreciate about the 4K UHD presentation, plus the way that the sound carries through, is that sense of the fidelity to how I remember the film operating on me, on my mind and my heart growing up. And I felt the same way watching the 4K. So, and I feel the same way too watching the Blu-ray. So that's my way of saying that, the 4K UHD doesn't always have to blow my socks off every single time. That could be because we already had high quality releases up to that. And I think Time Bandits, for me, the Criterion release here, is in that category. I think it's really great, and it didn't disappoint. And it's a reminder too of how great the past physical media releases have been for me of Time Bandits. I haven't had any bad history with these physical media releases for this film yet. And as far as this current release goes, that's still the case. I haven't had any one bad experience with this yet. And so maybe that's my way to say that this is a great release for anyone who is key on the 4K format and who wants to have Time Bandits on a 4K format. You're getting that here, obviously, plus the Blu-ray disc as well. If you already have the Blu-ray disc and you are okay with that, I think you're in really good hands. So therefore, I wouldn't necessarily call this super essential head and shoulders difference between the Blu-ray and the 4K for me. However, the Blu-ray is already very high, and so to have very little sunlight between a very high quality Blu-ray release and a high quality 4K UHD release, I think that speaks volumes for both releases. So whatever you prefer, if you prefer to keep your Blu-ray, I think you're in good hands. If you want to go for the 4K option, especially if you haven't seen the film or you haven't had a chance to get the Criterion release, now's your chance as well. So well done, Criterion, for doing this. And I should point out too, as I hinted earlier, that there seems to be some kind of trend or movement, whether it's on purpose or not, about Terry Gilliam's works in relation to the Criterion Collection and 4K releases. And so we're getting a lot of releases and re-releases of Terry Gilliam's works, going back from the beginning of the year with The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, and also we saw some great work with regard to The Fisher King. Of course, we've had earlier releases and past releases from some years back, Jabberwocky, etc. And now we have the re-release of Time Bandits. So what does this mean? Are we able to speculate what this could mean going forward with other Terry Gilliam works that currently sit in the Criterion Collection? Who knows? Who knows? But in the meantime, and even if we were to never get any further re-releases of Terry Gilliam's films in the Criterion Collection anytime soon, that's okay, because we are left here with a very fine release and a great reminder of how fun this film is. That's the film Time Bandits. So along with the film, we have I should mention first off that we have the film available again on the 4K UHD disc and then on the Blu-ray disc. The 4K UHD disc is what I have in the player at the moment. and also the supplements, which we'll talk about later. The supplements will be found only on the Blu-ray disc. They won't be found on the 4K UHD disc. And I know it's hard to make out here, I apologize, but if you can see, we have the menu here, and it says movie, timeline, chapters, commentary, subtitles. There's no submenu on the 4K disc for the supplements, but we'll talk about that when we get to the supplement section discussion of this video. But there is the option, either on the 4K disc or the Blu-ray disc when you watch the film, there is the option of listening to the commentary track as you watch the film. And this is the commentary track from 1997, because we've had a long history with this work and the Criterion collection, and it's so great to have the commentary track 1997. So that is what about 25 years ago and some change. And so this is but it's a commentary track that it still is brilliant listening. It hasn't aged at all. It's a timeless commentary track, and this is with Terry Gilliam, Michael Palin, John Cleese, David Warner, and Craig Warnock. And so we have there, and it's one of these ones where it seems like they're not all in the same room, but it's edited together. So when a certain moment happens, say with Craig Warnock, you'll hear his voice talking about some anecdote of the film. For instance, he has some really interesting anecdotes about a number of the actors he worked with. For example, Peter Vaughan, which is very interesting. And also when John Cleese's moments come up, then you'll hear John Cleese's voice. Terry Gilliam, I think, as a producer and director and co-writer, he appears on the commentary track, I think, the most of all the commentary track participants. But although you'll get some others, for instance, David Warner, there's some interesting comments about David Warner and his scenes, about how he feels his nostrils look, which is a very interesting comment. Michael Palin, too, he talks about the scenes that he's in, working with the actors and performers that he was working with on the sets. For example, Shelley Duvall. Speaking of Shelley Duvall, there's an interesting story that's also told elsewhere about how Terry Gilliam accidentally fell on Shelley Duvall. So accidents occur on set, but apparently no one was significantly or seriously injured, which is a relief. So that's according to Shelley Duvall herself, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But anyway, I'm sorry, I'm completely losing track of myself. That's how this film operates on me, I'm afraid, my dear friends. This film has so many ideas, filled to the brim with ideas. It's just electrifying, and just to watch it just makes me so excited to be able to talk about this. And part of that excitement is the commentary track. So if you haven't seen this film, listening to the commentary track, now is your opportunity. There's themes, especially from Terry Gilliam, that he mentions about domesticity and sort of the corrupting nature of capitalism and the middle classes, the imperfection, quote unquote, imperfection of deities, the supreme being and evil genius, representing some kind of power balance of the universe. And again, speaking about actors that he was working with, I mentioned Shelley Duvall, also mentioning Ian Holm. And here's a great example about how Ian Holm maybe wasn't necessarily regarded as a comedic actor, but Terry Gilliam recognized that Ian Holm has some real comedic talents, and they are on display here, as well as from a number of other actors such as Sean Connery, Shelley Duvall, etc. So it's really quite a wonderful commentary track. There's also a little bit of backstage drama that is revealed. Maybe some of the actors didn't like. There was some tension on set, maybe at some parts of the production. Also, some history about some of the executives not wanting to cast certain actors in favor of others due to certain reasons, etc. But and those details also emerge elsewhere. But in any event, we are getting a stellar commentary track. This is one of the best from the late 90s, and this is one of those great pioneering commentary tracks that, again, hasn't aged. It's so great to have this. back. So if you haven't watched the film with the commentary track on, now's your chance because this is a classic. Again, the commentary track from '97. And so now I have the Blu-ray disc in the player, and also I've removed from the case, I've removed the lenticular slipcover. Slipcase, which is really cool here, but we'll talk a little bit about this later. But I've put in the Blu-ray because I wanted to show that, again, the 4K has the film and the option of the commentary track. The Blu-ray has the film and the option of the commentary track, plus the menu for the supplements, which is what I have here. So if you want to go to the supplements, you're going to go to the Blu-ray. The Blu-ray has the supplements which have been carried over from previous Blu-ray releases of this film by Criterion. So to my understanding, we're not getting necessarily anything new on the occasion of this new 2023 release, but we are getting things that have that if you haven't seen already, now is your opportunity. So first up, we have Creating the Worlds of Time Bandits. This is approximately 23 minutes, and this is featuring David Morgan and also the production designer Millie Burns and costume designer James Atchison. And this is such a great supplement because it's a reminder of how important the visual aesthetic is for a film like Time Bandits, and not just the importance of visual aesthetic, but the importance of the combination of various styles of visual aesthetics on display. So what do I mean by this? Well, first of all, and also the way in which the concepts build and build and build to the final end result, and sometimes there might be changes along the way. It's a fascinating look into the creative process. Case in point, we have examples here about how maybe characters were conceived on the page in terms of sketch drawings that the character Randall or others, Rappaport character. But how there might have been certain choices that were conceived on the page that were then maybe adjusted or adapted or modified to suit the actor when it came time to do the actual shooting. So that's interesting. So all the way down to certain eyewear or hats or headwear, etc. So that's one thing. I mean, another thing too is in terms of a discussion of the production design, we have discussions about on location shooting, because there were moments where this film was shot in many places around the world, plus on-set shooting. And so that divide between on-set shooting and location shooting, because there's a lot of that here. And there are a lot of sets too. And as I say, this is a film that also highlights the beauty of the artifice. And also, one thing too about the costume design and production design that's expressed here in the comments by Millie Burns and James Atchison are that this film not only encompasses such a great visual style, it encompasses so many visual styles because we're in different locations to represent different points in time and space. So we're in like a desert type of territory, or we're in like woodlands, or we're in areas like, interior theater type of places, or we're in let's see, maybe family domestic settings, or we're talking about turn of the century ships, or we're talking about interdimensional space time travel, or the evil genius layer, and that type of thing. So there are so many environments on display. Epic, truly, truly epic. And so to get the sense of the artistic prowess that was needed to wield all of these environments together to form one aesthetic under the banner of Time Bandits, that's amazing. So it's great to get these comments and others from James Atchison and Millie Burns. So please check this out if you can, because the costume design and production design is such a key element in Terry Gilliam's films, such as Time Bandits. So please check this out if you can. Approximately 23 minutes or so. So please check that out. Next up, we have a discussion, a kind of Q&A on-stage discussion, described as being from 1998 Midnight Sun Film Festival in Finland, where Terry Gilliam is talking with Peter von Bach, and this is a kind of maybe an audience in front of a live audience, and Terry Gilliam is sitting there at the table, just talking and fielding, not fielding question, but engaging in a sort of on-stage interview. and it's long. It's really wonderfully long. It's great. It's about an hour and 20 minutes. It's really great. And he has the opportunity to talk about his life and career leading, around up to circa 1998. That includes a little bit of discussion about, Monty Python and Time Bandits, etc., working with the various participants that he met along the way, animation, etc. Oh, this is so great. And there's a moment where he's wearing this very interesting coat that he takes off at some point during this interview, which is another highlight in and of itself. So, and his influences and his creativity and his biographical points, etc. So, if you haven't encountered an interview with Terry Gilliam yet, this is, I think, a great place to go. It's in his own words, his life and times up to 1998, including Time Bandits. It's not devoted just to Time Bandits. It's devoted to across the board the life and times of Terry Gilliam up to that point. But it does have Time Bandits relevance to it. So, and it's a great place to go if you are interested in Terry Gilliam, the artist. So, this is from 1998, approximately an hour and 20 minutes. So, it's like it's like a film in and of itself. It's great that's included. Next up, we have an excerpt from a 1981 episode of the NBC show Tomorrow, the talk show Tomorrow with Tom Snyder. And this is approximately 8 minutes, or 8 or 9 minutes, I should say. And this is where Shelley Duvall is a guest. And Shelley Duvall is Shelley Duvall, what a great actor, what a great performer Shelley Duvall is. I mean, when you think about her career, you think about that stretch of films, especially in the 70s and into the 80s, she was going from essentially classic to classic to classic. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day about how Shelley Duvall, Shelley Duvall's career is epic, absolutely epic. And so one of the great performers, one of the great actors. And it's great that she gets this attention in terms of her career. I mean, the more attention, the better, because her career is unbelievable. I mean, mentioning films like, say, Popeye and The Shining and Time Bandits, and you get all those references within the scope of this, say, 8-minute segment of the Tomorrow Show. This is really cool. And she talks here about how she was discovered and working with Robert Altman. And because she does have a lot of films in her career where she's working with Robert Altman there. And she also talks about her background. She was studying in terms of nutritional science. And so had she not gone the route of performing in films as an actor, she might have had a career as a sort of nutrition-based scientist, which is also very fascinating. There's a sense of a fearlessness. She mentions the need for fearlessness as well. She has some comments about her working with Stanley Kubrick, and also her working on Time Bandits. But again, it's not Time Bandit centric. There are other points that she does talk about here in this, but it is a reminder too of the type of personality that she is, and it suits her role so well in Time Bandits. Oh my goodness, those scenes. I mean, there's so many great scenes in Time Bandits, but the scenes involving Shelley Duvall are standouts among a whole series of standouts. But a whole series of standouts includes her standout roles and her standout scenes, which are great, so delightful, so wonderful. And you get that shining personality shining through in her discussion. It's so wonderful, so endearing, so great. So Shelley Duvall, the excerpt here from the Tomorrow Talk Show from 1981. So that's included here. So please check that out if you haven't already. And then there's a section which is a stills gallery, which serves as a type of a slideshow presentation. I mean, I can click on it right now just to give you a sense of it. And you can see it says here, the gallery of rare behind-the-scenes stills features images of the cast and crew at work on the set of Time Bandits. Press the right arrow on your remote to move forward and the left arrow to move backward. So, and then to exit, press enter. So it has that slideshow presentation-like quality. So I really enjoy that as well. I really miss those. You don't get those in a lot of quote unquote recent physical media releases, but you do get them, and especially here because this is a kind of carryover from a prior release of this on Criterion Blu-ray. But it's great to have this to rely on. So you have the stills gallery, and let's go back to the menu, and then we have the trailer, which rounds out the supplements that are found on this. So the supplements that can be found with this new re-release 4K UHD plus Blu-ray combo. So we're not, to my understanding, we're not getting anything new on the occasion of 2023. Would have been nice to get something new? Yes. I mean, that's a kind of ongoing conversation that we can have regarding Criterion's re-releases of films using the 4K UHD format. Sometimes, and perhaps even most of the time, Criterion seems to add the 4K UHD disc, and of course adding, say, maybe the benefit of a different, newer restoration to use as the 4K disc's basis. That oftentimes happens. It doesn't always happen, but that oftentimes happens. But even in those scenarios, most of the time, Criterion will not add anything new in terms of supplements. They won't even change the look and aesthetic of the release, the box art, etc. Now, is that a good or bad thing? Again, it depends on what you're looking for. For some people, it might be enough to get the 4K UHD experience. And if that's the case, then certainly getting the 4K UHD plus Blu-ray combo is definitely an option. But it does beg the question, wouldn't it be nice to have, say, something added or something new to make the newer release stand out even more? I am reminded of another discussion of a film that was re-released by Criterion called The Rules of the Game, directed by Jean Renoir from the late 1930s. And on that occasion, too, that was also a 4K UHD plus Blu-ray combo release of that film that already existed in the Criterion Collection physical media catalog. Now, while there weren't any additional supplements added to that release, much like there weren't any additional supplements added to this release of Time Bandits, they did change. Criterion did change the cover art, and they did change the look of the booklet. So in that sense, there was a little bit of an aesthetic difference. In terms of substance, it might have been the same, except, of course, for the very significant fact that we were seeing a new 4K digital restoration of that film as well. So that's my way of saying is maybe for some people the 4K UHD format, relying most of the time on a new restoration, that alone is a selling point, and that is a very significant selling point for a lot of people. But it also might be nice to consider the possibility of maybe adding something new here and there. It doesn't have to be extensive, it doesn't have to be a complete overhaul, but it might be nice to add something new. Now, I don't know what the costs are with that, and also we have to think too, we have to remind ourselves that oftentimes, the Blu-ray will be essentially the same Blu-ray from prior releases just carried over. And so if that's the case, it might be cost prohibitive to, say, reissue or issue a whole new Blu-ray for the sake of adding one or two supplements. That might not be cost productive. And so I can understand the reasoning, perhaps, or I can assume what the reasoning might be for just having the same Blu-ray that was made available in prior releases that has no other changes to it. I can definitely understand that. But that doesn't mean that there can't be any changes elsewhere, maybe in terms of cover art design, maybe in terms of added essays, updated essays, whatever the case may be. So that's something to consider. But at the end of the day, if you are into having the updated, or maybe update is not the right word, having the application of this quote-unquote newer technology of 4K UHD, then that might be the ultimate selling point for you. It depends on the title. For me, as I mentioned, the Blu-ray was, I think, very, very high quality already, so it may be enough to have the Blu-ray, or it may be for some people who love this film so much, it's worth it to get the 4K. It depends on the title. It really does. So, but again, just something to consider. This is an ongoing conversation in terms of when we see 4K UHD plus Blu-ray releases of currently existing titles in the catalog. Sometimes there are market differences, but maybe most of the time it's a little bit of a quieter type of discussion or type of differences that is definitely worth keeping an eye out for in future. I mean, it's an ongoing conversation, let me put it in that. And then now let's round out our conversation with respect to the poster art design, or the fold out. So this is, I think, meant to be a type of suggestion of poster artwork, or the suggestion of the map itself. So it's a very interesting concept here. And then on the back, again, akin to the poster art design, which was kind of fashionable several years back with Criterion releases, we have the information about the release, and also Guerrilla Fantasy this is the essay by David Sterritt, another great essay. My strong suggestion is, of course, to first watch the film if you haven't already, and then after you've seen the film, you can read this great essay by David Sterritt, and indeed other essays that are included with other Criterion releases. So, I always prefer the booklets, the staple booklets, but there's just something very charming about this, especially since it's reminding us of a key prop in the film. Perhaps the prop. I mean, it's so key. I mean, it's so important as to be. I guess it's a Terry Gilliam type of MacGuffin, in a manner of speaking, but what a MacGuffin this is. And so it's great to have that reminder of this. So in that way, it's charmed its way to my heart. Let me put it that way. So, and I should mention too that the artwork is, of course, carryover from previous releases. And so just to give a shout out to the artwork, art director Sarah Habibi, Eric Skillman, designer Efron Miller, art production coordinator William Brazy, and art assistant Julie Sussman. So yes, another carryover in terms of the art design, which is also carried over in terms of the Blu-ray or the disc menus. So that is it as far as Time Bandits. I should also mention too, I'm sorry, before I go, the inclusion of the lenticular slipcase cover. Now this is the thing where you move it and it kind of moves depending on the angle. And that's really cool. So I know that in the past there were past releases where the lenticular slipcase was a big deal with the DVD, and as far as my own knowledge bases in terms of Criterion releases, I don't think this was always made available for every single release of this, which makes this inclusion of the lenticular slipcover. I have this for my DVD of it, I think. But now I have it for the newer release and the 4K UHD plus Blu-ray combo. I'm not sure if this is for every single release. If it's not, you're just going to have to check it out. Make sure that the copy that you get includes it if you are looking for it. Of course, slip cases or slip covers, they are really nice. They aren't necessary, of course. It's part of the fun of physical media collecting. And especially something like this, I think that's very cool. But it's a nice thing to have. It's not ultimately necessary, of course. Ultimately, it's about the film. I get it, but it's this wonderful piece of miscellany. That's again part of the whole fun and thrill of physical media. So if you are interested, there's my copy. That again, when I got it, included a lenticular slipcase. So that is a discussion of the re-release of Time Bandits. So. Thank you very much, my dear friends, for sticking around. I hope that this video found you well and in good spirits. And until the next video, my dear friends, please continue to be happy and healthy and well. And please, please, please keep on watching a lot of great, great movies, including Terry Gilliam films, including Time Bandits and beyond. So until the next video, my dear friends, stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.